Hi everybody, it's Sarah Veblen here. I am going to be talking about sewing frustration, which is something I talk about. I coach a lot of my students to help them avoid sewing frustration. And sure enough, I did something a couple of months ago that really frustrated me. And I want to talk about what my experience was so that it might help you. A good friend of mine who sews made this mile end pattern, and I thought it was so cute with this long V opening and kangaroo pocket. I love hoods, and I thought this is great. She made it right out of the envelope. She just picked the size that she thought would be best for her and thought it is what it is. And I thought, well, I will at least look at the pattern and hold it up to myself and gauge a little bit about lengths, because I am much taller than she is. I also do not have the defined waist and hips that she has. I'm a much straighter figure. That's going to figure into all of this. And so I thought, well, I will lengthen the pattern a little bit. So I lengthened it at the bottom. So I elongated the bottom here, thinking I could do just the same amount of band because I didn't want too wide of a band. And I thought, well, I'll just move the pocket down. What I didn't anticipate was where this crossover is, I moved it down so much that this crossover was outside of the pocket, and it did not look very good at all. So I made a couple of different pockets, taking off the one. Of course, I was in real fabric because that's what I thought I would just be clever and do. And I really like the fabric. It is kind of like a French terry, so parts of it are smooth here, and here is the fuzzy side. So I was playing with the inside and outside, having some parts of the top be the smooth side and some part being the fuzzy side to get some differences. So I'll just hold this up so you can kind of see it now. And it has this cool hood on it. I knew I'd wear the hood open, so I have the fuzzy side showing in the back here. And one thing I really liked about the pattern is the seam comes across from the underarm around into the front. And I thought that was really cool. So here I just delve in, lengthen the pattern, do a little tiny bit of pattern work, engaging, ran into that problem about the pocket. And I thought, it's okay, I can just make a wider band. I can have I finally got a pocket I liked, and I thought I'll make a really deep band. And so I did this, and I had thought, well, this is gonna be a quick project, and here I am in about 4 or 5 hours because I've had to take some things apart in the fashion fabric. And some things were going really well. I really liked the way the hood, I'll hold this up again. I really liked the way the hood looked coming around, so that you have some parts of the fuzzy side in here and some parts of the smooth side showing. It has a back yoke, and I really liked what I did here in the back yoke where it's fuzzy and then the smooth side coming down below. One thing I really liked also was that it has these cool darts in the front of the sleeve. So it's sort of like an elbow dart, but it is on the front. So it's really kind of stylistic to put some fullness in here, which is just kind of fun. So as I was working on this, my seam allowances, when I pressed them open, they wouldn't stay because of the thickness of the fabric. Here I wanted it to be cozy and warm, so I chose this warm fabric, but they wouldn't press open. So I thought, well, I'll have to top stitch. Now, some of you have, I'm sure, experienced that when you top stitch, you add a little bit more structure to your garment. And so I had not thought that through, but I thought, well, it's the only thing I can do to control the seam allowances. So I ended up doing a lot of top stitching. One way to think about that statement is I'm putting a lot of time into this, never having done a mock-up, never proofing out if I was gonna like it or not. And I kept going, I kept convincing myself that it was gonna all turn out okay. I made all kinds of notes on my pattern. I've got different notes here of what to do next time. more notes here about what to do next time. So I was tracking my changes, and I thought, well, you know, that's really important. I talk about that all of the time, is you make changes, track them in your pattern so that you can reproduce it. So I finally finished the garment the next day, and I thought, I love the color, I love the top stitching, I love putting the front face and the back of the fabric together, and I put it on. I'm not going to put it on for you because it was really disappointing, and I'll just get frustrated again, I expect, if I put it on again for you. But what happened was, because of the thickness of the band at the bottom and all of the top stitching that I've had to do, the top on me is really stiff, and this band just sticks out across my hips. It's got about the right amount of wearing ease if it wasn't so thick and bulky and stiff. And the sleeve ends did the same thing, because I reversed the cuff fabric. Here's the sleeve with the smooth side, here's the fuzzy side. All of that I liked. Lots of little top stitching in here, which was really cool. I had serged my seams after I had constructed it, but all of that's adding stiffness. And so when my arm goes in here, I'll just show this to you like this. You can see this is really kind of stiff. The size of it didn't bother me, but the stiffness did, and all of the seams feel stiff against my skin. Now I could wear an undershirt, but it still just feels, I put it on and I feel kind of like Yeti, sort of this big oversized person lumbering around. So the whole experience was really disappointing to me. I thought, well, I'll wash it and see if it softens up then. Maybe it did a tiny bit, but not really. So I put it aside. This is often what I do for myself, and what I recommend to students is to put it aside and then come back to it in a couple of days. And one of the things that I find is helpful for myself, as well as many of my students when they have done my recommendation, I first look at the garment and assess what went well. Then I look at the garment again, maybe after that first part, and I write down what didn't go well. So what went well was the reversal of the fabric, face and back of the fabric. I really liked the way the hood just comes right down like this into the front here. I love kangaroo pockets, but this one is too big. So, but the idea of a kangaroo pocket was very cool. I really like these funky sort of front darts, elbow darts that are in the front. So there were things that I liked about it, and I made a note of what those were. Then I started to assess what I didn't like, and I've talked to you already about what they are. It's stiff, it's big, the proportions of the garment don't work right for me, because I ended up lengthening a lot in that front band, and it just is disproportionate to the rest of the garment. Doing this exercise of writing down what went well and what didn't go well, and then thinking about how I had just jumped in and ignored my advice that I give almost every single student I've ever worked with, which is make a mock-up. That's your proving ground. That's where you get your sort of your laboratory, so you can work out everything. And I just totally ignored my own advice about that. And it came back to disappoint me. I will try to describe to you how frustrated I was. When I get frustrated, I generally get a knot in my stomach, and I just kept saying, you can do this, you can keep track of your pattern, you can keep powering through this, it'll all be okay in the end. And I continued to have this sort of sinking feeling in my stomach. And I should have paid attention to that. At that point, I should have said, stop, do a mock-up, don't go any further, and do your mock-up and work out your proportions then. So I have relearned is the better word, yet again, how important that mock-up is to my process. So I can work out these things ahead of putting all of this time, a little bit more than almost a day worth of time, into a garment that I can't wear. It also is a really good reminder to me about that I hit so many successes in my garment sewing now that sometimes I forget what it's like when students talk to me about their frustration sewing. And in a way, I thought, well, this is really good, because now I very recently have had this experience where I'm really frustrated. I'm very disappointed in myself, and I have to pick up and get going sewing again. So what did I do? I decided to make a couple of t-shirts from one of my tried and true patterns. So I had a couple of successes under my belt. I made a skirt, just a knit skirt, and I have a couple of other things planned. And then I am going to, when I'm ready to tackle this again, I will put the sweatshirt on, and I will decide whether or not I want to keep going along with this pattern, or do I want to take one of my master patterns and start with it and imitate this hood coming down into the low V neckline. I'd always wear a shirt under it and a kangaroo pocket. Maybe pick up this cool line of the side seam not being straight up and down, but coming around to the front, which I think is a really, really pretty line. I'll hold this up again here for you to see, but I think very often you can tell more from the line drawing, and you can see this cool seam coming here. So it's helped me define what it is that I'm going to be going for, and it has helped me to understand and reconnect with a lot of my students' feelings when they say, God, this was just so frustrating. And it's all goes to show that, you know, you live and learn, and sometimes we ignore what we know we should be doing, and sometimes it works out, but for me, it did not work out. At any rate, I have set this aside for about 6 weeks, and hopefully in the new year, or maybe even between Christmas and New Year's, when I'm planning to do some sewing, I'll be able to tackle this, or as I said, I might interpret one of my own patterns and get these elements that I really like. So hopefully something I've said along the way in this video will help you identify what it's like to be frustrated, some of the things that you can do to avoid the frustration, and then when you have experienced frustration, how do you pick yourself up and get going again? So I'm determined. I want a kangaroo pocket. I want this pretty open V, and I will give it another shot, and hopefully in a couple of months, maybe 3 or 4 months, I'll have something to show you. Thanks for joining me.